guys, it's Kelly here and I am back with another video. Today's video features Just Breathe, which is a new set from W+9, and Flora and Fauna 4. We are going to be combining these images. We're going to be talking about color mapping. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff today. So I wanted to, you guys know I'm a big fan of stretching my stamps and getting more out of what I have. And so I really love the Just Breathe set. I think that this little bird and sketchy rose is super pretty, but I wanted to make it a bit bolder. That was kind of my game plan. I wanted to make it more than what it was. And in order to do that, I wanted to put some more flowers behind it. The Flora and Fauna 4 set, Lord, say that 3 times fast, has a beautiful image with roses that are similar to this particular type of rose drawn into it, but it also has a clock. I didn't want the clock. I wanted to replace the clock with this rose and this bird. And so you're not going to be able to do this with all images, but I would encourage you to see what images you maybe can do something like this with, where you just layer them on top of each other and it gives you a completely different image. And in fact, after I had colored it, I sent the picture to Dawn, who is the illustrator for W+9, illustrator owner, you know, person who, Renaissance woman, if you will. She does all the things. And she was like, I didn't even recognize it as my own images first. So like you can get more out of what you have, which I think is a wonderful plan. So here, when I cut my mask and put it in place, I left the entire right-hand portion intact. So that's all a mask, because I knew that my clock, it's not going to be perfect. And I'm going to show you how we fix that. But I knew that the clock would overhang my rose, so I wanted to make sure that I had masking paper along the right-hand side of the image. I'm really looking to stamp the flowers along the bottom and left-hand side. So stamped it in alcohol-safe alcohol-safe ink, so I can use my markers, and then masked it, and now we're going to stamp the other image. Here, obviously, with it inked in black, you can very much see the clock that we're masking out of there. We're not going to get all of it because, like I said, it's not perfect, but that's okay because there's other things that we can do to change it so that it fits. And again, that, you know, just using our creative mind to kind of do that. I did end up stamping this twice, just because I had never used this stamp before. Had I? Yes, I did. I used it with a no-line coloring ink, though, and I'm pretty sure that I did it while I was at work and I was just messing around. I don't think that I did it in a video. So now, once that is stamped, I am going to remove the mask, and you will see that we now have a completely different image, but one that still makes sense. They still go together. Dawn's style of illustration is much more like sophisticated is a good word to use. And I really love her style. I do. And I know that a lot of other people out there do as well. And so I like seeing how I can use them differently. Here, this is sped up, but what we're doing here is approaching our detailed image. A lot of people get really overwhelmed by detailed images because they don't know where to start. So my recommendation to you is, here I have my cover sheet for my stamp, so I can see what the intended stamp was to look like. And then what I'm doing is called mapping. And so I'm taking the lightest color of the colors I think I'm going to use. The colors I think I'm going to use. Remember, you're not married to this. And you want to use the lightest one to very lightly kind of sketch in your colors so that you can see what is what. And that way you can get an idea of how you're going to approach it. So it like breaks it up into chunks so it's more manageable and it doesn't just look like this huge, enormous scene or this huge, enormous image that you don't even know how to tackle. So now that the mapping is done, we're going to go in and start our actual coloring. I chose pretty bold colors for this, because that's what I like. So you could change this into whatever colors you would like, but I wanted really bright, bold colors. You will see here, if you watch my videos normally, you know that I normally go in lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. Sometimes with your more detailed images, where there's more lines going on, it's actually easier to start with your darkest color. Now, don't go crazy. I know, and I'm telling you this as a word of warning because I've done it. I am very heavy-handed with my darks, typically. If I start with them first, and that's why I color the way that I do. But in order to give myself a place that I feel like I can be comfortable adding shading, I started with my darkest marker, and you can see I'm just putting in very, very little. Just lines and triangles, where, you know, maybe the leaf is dipped in, or the petal is dipped in, or where they're laying on top of each other. But I'm being very, very careful as I'm adding my other colors to add them pretty much just right on top of the other line that's already there, unless the petal is larger and I feel like I can just do a couple little flicks of color. But for all this stuff on the inside, I'm not extending this color out really too much at all. I'm just kind of going over that darker line, and you don't have to go as dark as I did. You know, whatever color it is or color palette that you're choosing to use, you just want to make sure that you have a light, and a dark. Otherwise, you're not going to have any dimension, and you're going to see that later on when we do the background, that I went too light. And if you go in there and you go too light, you're not going to get that contrast or that dimension, and it's going to be kind of lackluster. So now here, once I have my two darker colors in, I can go in and start filling in with my mid-tone, which is what you're going to see the majority of. If you're using a 3-color blend, you will see mostly just your middle color. If you're using a 4-color blend like I do, you'll see mostly just your 2 middle colors, but I'm still leaving that highlight. As I'm going around this rose, you can see that there are still very much distinct, white or very, very light pink spots in this case, even into the center of the rose, because those highlights is what's going to give us that dimension and that contrast. So it's going to pop up off the page and look much more realistic. Now here, I had to re-ink my marker. I used to be really good about it, like when I had time and sleep and things like that. I would re-ink my markers all at one time. Now I just kind of re-ink them as I need them, and your lighter colors will almost always need it before any of the other ones, because you use the most of that. You just do, especially when you're blending. When you're blending, you don't want to just go in there and scribble your lightest color all over the image. You want to make sure that you're following the shape of the petals and sticking to just the outside layers, especially if you're using pinks, because your lighter colors will remove a little bit of that dark, so you don't want to get it on your shadow area. I'm going to show you this one other rose. Again, these are drawn in similar styles, though not exact, but enough that we're going to be able to get away with it. And so for this one, I am doing my more traditional lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, because it's not as detailed as that other rose. Meaning, like, there's not as many lines to pay attention to. It's a little bit more simplified. And so going in, the normal way that I color, I feel a lot more comfortable doing so. I just think it's a shame that there's all these beautiful images out there in the stamping world that people are afraid to color because it has more lines or more detail. I will have a video for you next week where we talk again about a much easier way to color detailed images that's really quick and easy and kind of foolproof, that is different than this. But yeah, so I'm excited about that video. I think that that'll be helpful to a lot of people who maybe have a hard time approaching coloring. So we're going to just work our way through this image. I'm not going to show you the coloring of every single thing in its entirety. I will show you the coloring of at least one or two things in each of the sections, so that way you're not missing any of it, and you'll see all the color combinations and all that jazz. You guys know, if you follow me, that I don't like leaving anything out, because if I'm coloring an image and I'm looking for somebody else's example, I just don't want to go watch their video and be like, oh, well, great, they cut that part out, which is the only part I really wanted to see. So yeah, so today is my birthday. And we already kind of celebrated this past weekend. I told you guys that. And so today there isn't really anything huge planned. My mama did call me and asked me if we wanted to go out to dinner tonight, but I am like scrambling to get my stuff done from, that I need to do in the next week or two. So I'm not sure if we're going to go or not, just because I just have so much to do. And then to make it even worse, so Eric very generously got up with the kids this morning so that I could sleep in, and I had alarms set, but then I slept through my alarms. I'm so mad about it. Like, I had all the stuff that I needed to get done, and then my body was like, no, you just sleep. I mean, really, what do you even have to accomplish? For the leaves here, I did choose some yellow greens because I really like that with like the brighter pinks and the brighter oranges. And so I'm just following the lines that are already there, extending those out to, make them a little bit darker. Where a leaf is tucked behind another, there's going to be a shadow. And then I added a shadow down the middle of the line just to give them a little bit more shape. Any point that you are adding more shadow, it's going to look like it's dipped in. And then the higher points will be where the highlights are. So now that those are done, and here there weren't too many. I basically just stuck with the leaves that were part of the Just a Breathe image for the greens. Except for like a little few in the teeny tiny ones in the background by these orange flowers. So when I mapped it, I put down yellow as my lightest, as my filler color, as my mapping color, which is totally okay for orange. If you're not sure, if you're going to go yellow or if you're going to go orange, use the light yellow to map with, because either way, it'll be super easy to cover it up. And you're going to see here in just a little bit that I do change my mind on one of the colors, because like I told you in the beginning, you're not married to it, you're just dating. In fact, you might not even be dating, you might be on a first date, not even in a committed dating situation. And so it's okay to switch it up and change it. For the orange flowers, I did my, lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, more traditional. And then I did use a darker yellow as my lightest color just to give it some brightness. The leaves that are from the original portion of the image that are from the Flora and Fauna 4, I chose to do teal. We're going to talk about these again in a second. So anyway, Eric very generously got up and took the kids where they needed to go so that I could sleep in. And so I did. I slept too long and I was mad about it when I got up. But mad at myself, nobody else. I mean, I'm the only person who slept through my alarm. But then when I went downstairs, he was very sweet and he had got me coffee and had got me a chicken and biscuit. I do love me a chicken and biscuit. So good. And some flowers, which was very, very sweet, even though we had already celebrated. So it was very thoughtful of him to make my day, even though it's not our, full celebration, make my day a little extra special. My mom asked me what I wanted for my birthday. And we were talking, and, it's hard when you're older to come up with like things that you want for your birthday. And so I was like, well, I'm going to get my hair done if you want to maybe contribute to that, or, I'm going to have to buy this if you want to contribute to that. And then I was talking to Eric's mom here. This is the part we're going to talk about it. So underneath the bird, you can see I added in a little extra teal that was not there before. That is part of the clock. And by just coloring it in teal, it acts like another leaf, and nobody will ever know that it wasn't a leaf and it wasn't meant to be there. For the portions of the clock that I could not mask, i.e. the little top handle and this part that kind of curves around, I'm just going to color them brown as if they're branches. And unless you knew what that previous image was, or you saw what we did here, you would never know that those weren't intended to be a portion of the image as they are. Now, you could also color them another color. You could go in there, with green and make it a vine, or the teal and make it a vine. I chose to go with brown and make it a branch. But, there's ways to mask those things when you're combining your images so that nobody's going to know. No one will know. Unless it's just me and you, and that's because you watched me do it. So here is where we're breaking up. Our first date did not work out. Thank you, good sir. It was nice to meet you. Carry on your way, brown bird. Because I didn't want to do the brown. After I had gotten all my other colors down, I just wasn't feeling it. And so I went right over it with blue. And because I used such a light color for my mapping, no one's going to know that we switched it up and that I didn't intend for it to be a bright blue bird from the get-go. So for the bird, just a couple of things to note for shading. Where the wing is tucked over the body, it will be darker. These lines are already drawn into the top portion of the wing, and all I'm doing is accentuating them with my shading. So I'm going right over those lines and flicking that color up into the top of the wing. Again, just to give it a little bit more shape and kind of show off those lines that were drawn by Dawn, with the intention of it being a more defined wing. And so yeah, just gonna fill those things in. I always color with my light sources in the top right hand corner, and nothing's different here. That's why the right hand side of my bird is lighter than the left hand side of my bird. If you decide to do the accentuating of those lines, you just want to make sure that you're leaving breaks in between, because again, we need to conserve that highlight. That's going to be what will give us the dimension in those lines. So it's if you don't leave the highlights, it's just going to look like one big blob. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be the lightest color. It could be the mid-tone color, but it's got to be differentiated from your darker shadow color. Because here I didn't even really, the lightest color I used very minimal of. I used it on this wing, and then I used it on the far right-hand side where my highlight point would be. Okay, so where were we talking about? Oh, I was talking to Eric's mom. And she was telling me how her and her best friend, basically when it comes to, birthday buying, I should have left this white. I'm going to be honest with you. I love a clean white image. I didn't do that. And I really, just looking at it now, I should have just left it alone. You can tell me what you think. If you like the end result background, or if you like the white. I really like the white, and I should have just left well enough alone. But I didn't, because I wanted the drama, and I got the drama, and then I had to work my way out of the drama. So I outlined it like I normally do. I added some white gel pen dots inside the little teeny tiny flowers, and then one in the eye of the bird, and then I got to work on the background. I got to work ruining it, basically. Here, I just wanted to note, I have a B95 and a B34. They're very similar in color. The B95 is just a little bit more desaturated, but they're not too far off the mark from each other. And my B95 needed to be re-inked. So that's the one I normally would have went with, but I didn't, because I didn't want to re-ink it. True story. So here, basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the darkest part at the center, so my B99, and I'm just kind of filling in that area around my image. This is what I meant when I said I wanted the drama, because I wanted to pop off this dark background. But I didn't end up liking the way it looked, because I got lighter as it went out toward the edges. And this is, I told you earlier, the dark is what gives you the dimension. And if you get too light, if it's not, saturated enough, it just kind of looks lackluster. And that is exactly what ends up happening. So I'm going to fill this all in. Then I'm going to do some other stuff to the background, perfect pearls, white dots. I'm going to try to make it work. And then I'm going to fix it. So here we go on our journey, on our background journey. But anyway, so her and her best friend, the way that they buy gifts for each other is what is the thing that you need, but you don't want to spend any money on? It's a thing that I need, but I don't want to spend my money on it. So they buy each other all kinds of stuff. One year she bought her, she bought her a toilet seat. Another year she bought her some bathroom puffs, the puffs that you use in the bathroom, a year's supply of puffs. So just all kinds of stuff that they buy each other, which I thought was fascinating. So one of the things I did, and I did it without thinking about it, I wear a Fitbit. You guys probably see it in my videos all the time. And I've had my Fitbit for 2 years, I think. I think it was 2. I think I bought it in 2020. Might have been a year before that. Anyway, here with the spatters, because we're using alcohol, I'm covering up my image, and then I'm using just regular isopropyl alcohol to do my splatters to kind of break it up. I'm trying to save this background, y'all. I'm out here with a life vest, treading water. That's what's happening. And I'm just trying to come up with any way that I can think of that will maybe possibly fix it. None of it does. Not until the end. So my Fitbit band, like I have one of the, I don't even know what you call it. It's not vinyl. I don't know what it is. But anywho, it's cracking. And I'm out of my warranty. And they've moved on to making the next Fitbit. So mine's a Charge 4. They've moved on to the 5. So now, of course, they're not selling any accessories for the 4. Not in any colors that I want anyway. So I ended up doing... Amazon had a bunch. But I don't know. I'm always wary of buying things from Amazon because they... sometimes they're coming from non-kosher areas. Like, it's not cool. So I ended up finding a couple at Target for like $10. And so that is what I picked up. And I picked them up without thinking like maybe somebody would need a birthday gift for myself. So then the other thing I need is shampoo. I do this sounds so bougie. It's embarrassing. I do the customizable shampoo. Because I have curly hair that is very fine, but can also be very flat, like have no volume because it's fine. And so I do the customizable shampoo. I use the Function of Beauty one, and it works fairly well for me. I've been pretty happy with it. You can customize your scent. You can, customize what your like precursors are. So I usually do curly, lengthening, color protection because I do dye my hair, volumizing. What's the other one that I do? I don't remember. Did I say lengthening? I think I did, because I'm always just trying to grow my hair out. After I had Peanut, my hair just stopped growing. So let's go back to the card. So here, I trimmed it down. I'm putting it on a white card base to match my sentiment, which I heat embossed. And then I was like, okay, I'll put some shimmers on it and then I will be done. And I was. And I let it sit on my desk for a day. And I was like, no, sir. I don't like it. I feel like that background is too busy. I feel like it distracts away from this beautiful image, which I worked so hard to create. And so no, I don't like it. So then I decided I was going to change it. So now what I'm doing is, this is a C7. It's a dark gray. And you do have to be careful, especially if you've done heat embossing on your image like I have here, because the alcohol marker will color the heat embossing. So I'm just going around it very carefully. I'll show you in the end how I fix getting any of the marker on my heat embossing. But because Copics, I tell you this all the time, Copics are transparent, it's not going to make my background gray. It will still be blue. It will just be much darker, and I don't even want to say much more uniform, because I don't think that it ended up being more uniform. I think that you could see some of the streaks and strokes, and you can still see some of the dots in the background, especially of the perfect pearls. But it's better. It's less distracting. So I just went in and very carefully filled in that background so it was darker. Again, I wanted it to not distract from this image. That was my main goal. So then once that was all filled in, doesn't that look so much better? You guys can tell me. Not as good as the white, but better than what we had going on. And then I did, because I'm not perfect, I did get some gray on my white card base. And so I just went in with a colorless blender, and I will use that same colorless blender to just touch on the spots of the embossed portions that got the gray on it. And then that is it. That is the whole card. So I hope that you learned a little something. and that you are inspired to maybe combine your images or try some color mapping and approach a more detailed image, or even just how to fix your background if you mess it up. If I could teach you that, that's a win too. And I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.